Shalom Aleichem, good morning. Welcome to those who are here, those who are on Torah anytime or anywhere else. We have an exciting, very exciting shiur today, Mirtzeh Hashem. We're going to speak a lot about Eretz Yisrael. A lot of the Torah of Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, Zatzal. Some of it very, very surprising. Some tzitzis issues, some riddles, some stories. So let's start. I want to dedicate this shiur to the Shelach of our dear friend Ben Zion Ben Doisa, Mitzvah Hashem Yishrav Hatzlacha, together with his whole family. And we should only hear Besuas, Toivus, Yeshuas, V'nechamois. Okay, we're starting with an easy riddle. We're looking for a pasuk, if anyone has a chumash in front of him, a pasuk in this pasha that has 4 names of Sfarim of the Tanakh. 4 different names of Sfarim in the Tanakh that appear in one pasuk in our pasha. Can it be? Okay. Who did Shnai Mikra ve'echad Targum and who did not? Yet, there's still time. There's still time. Shnai Mikra ve'echad Targum. What's that?
I said I did it, but I can't remember it.
Bamidbar Yud Gimel, Tet Zayin, 13:16. The pasuk says, "Ele shemois ha'anashim." Shemois is already one sefer that we're familiar with. Asher shalach Moshe latur et haaretz. He sent the people to spy the land. Vayikra Moshe. Vayikra is the next chumash. LeHoshea, Sefer Hoshea, he called Hoshea bin Nun. What did he call him? Yehoshua. He was the 4th Sefer, 4 Sfarim in one pasuk. And now, halachic question. Interesting, Maisa. There was a shul that decided to expand, did some renovations, and they made the place wider. They moved the walls, and they were able to add more benches and more seats. So they added to each bench another 2 seats on the side. There's a guy, we'll call him Reuven, who's been sitting on his bench for 15 years. He was always on the aisle. He had the aisle seat right next to the wall. But now, since they added 2 more seats, he, instead of being number 1 on the bench, he is number 3. So he comes to the Gabayim and says, listen, it's been 15 years that I've been sitting here and I've been paying my dues. And, you just demoted me. I used to have the aisle seat. I like it. I like being on the aisle. I don't have to, only one side banging into somebody else. And I have the wall next to me. I like it. And now you basically placed me in the middle of the bench. This is wrong. The Gabayim said, we didn't move you. You were in exactly the same place where you were before. We just added 2 more seats to the edge of the bench. But we didn't move you. Nothing's changed. Who is right? Halachic discussion. The Gabayim or Reuven, who claims you moved me from my place. I used to be on the aisle seat. I'm no longer in the aisle place. Does he have a claim or not? What do you say, Rabbi say?
Well, yeah. Why is it his makom?
It's been his makom for 15 years, and they say nothing has changed. You're still sitting in your makom. I'm sorry? He has a claim. In order to say I have a claim in a Beis Din, we need some kind of documentations, some kind of sources. Give me anything.
He changed his environment. That's the makom, not his.
We didn't move you an inch. You've been sitting in the same place, and you will be sitting until Biyas Goel Tzedek B'mehera B'yameinu.
So if they remove everything or dig a hole under his seat, I say
Do you have a source? It sounds nice. I like your svara. But in order to pass it in Beis Din, we need some sources.
I saw it, I think, from Rahman.
From?
Rahman. It's not that taking the Yud of Sarai and put it on Yeshua. I remember that one letter was taken off and did not complain, so he used it as a svara for the fact that it's...
Let's see. It's actually not from Rafam, it's a little before him, the Levushe Srad. So we're going a couple 100 years back. And he says a fantastic thing. In Parashat Lech Lecha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Avraham, we're changing the name of your wife. It used to be Sarai, but no longer. Now she's going to be called Sarah. The Gemara says, Yerushalmi in Sanhedrin Perek Beis Halach Vav. The letter Yud came to complain to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Excuse me? Until now I was in the name of a tzaddikus, and now you're taking me off? What did I do wrong? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, don't worry. You were by tzaddikus, now you're moving to a tzaddik. In our parsha, we learned that Hoshea bin Nun will have a name change. We're going to do a Mishaberach in Shum. We're going to call him Yehoshua. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to the Yud, don't worry. You used to be by Sarah, now you're going to be by Yehoshua. Great. Asks the Levushei Sod, how come the hey in the beginning of the name Hoshea doesn't come to complain to Kodesh Baruch Hu, excuse me, I was demoted. I had the aisle seat. I was the first in that word, Hoshea, and now they made me second. Comes the Yud and comes in front of me. Since we don't hear the letter Yud coming and complaining, we see from here that Reuven does not have a taina. He doesn't have a claim. It's a pele. He's using the Agada part of the Gemara to rule in a monetary law. Very, very interesting case that he's using this for a proof. What is more interesting to me, as he lichoira totally ignores Shulchan Aruch Meforesh. The Rema in Choshen Mishpatzim in Kuf Ayin Aleph speaks exactly about this case, and he says that the person who was moved does have a case. So lichoira, that's stronger than the Agada part of the Gemara in Yerushalmi. The Pischei Tshuva over there in Kuf Ayin Aleph in Choshen Mishpat Seif Cotton Base explains there is a difference if the seat now changed its value. If it used to be on the aisle, and let's say, maybe in some places in the world they do that, a certain seat in the shul costs X, but a shul with more features and amenities, maybe close to the AC, maybe on the aisle, maybe it's worth more. If it's worth more or less now because it's no longer on the aisle, so now you have a claim. Otherwise, lichoira, you wouldn't have a claim, and that's how the Pischei Tshuva explains what seems to be a machloikis, a contradiction in two psakim of the Rosh. But what's interesting is this, the Arvei Nachals, which is the Levushei Srad's Raya, from the Agada part with the letters of Yud and Hey. What's that? The Pischei Tshuva says that if it changed the value of the seat, now you have a claim. But if nothing has changed, you don't have a. You don't have a.
Excuse me, it's not practical, but it's a value.
True. But the Gabayim have the right to run the shul according to the way they see fit. We need to add more members, and therefore we're adding new people who are also paying just like you, and new people or people who just changed location. The Gabayim have the right to do it. But if the seat now is worth less or more, and that's basically it's a monetary case, then he has the right.
So the humility that the Yud had by not insisting on having its makom is a schar, just because he said, listen, you need more seats, more people come in, you got to raise more money for the shul. That's a humilitic act. It's like, okay, I give up my humility. I'll move to the back row, to the middle row. I'll be the head. All right, that doesn't insist on the humility.
Lechoira, the Yud didn't demonstrate any humility. The Yud came and complained. You're taking me off the name Sarai. What's going to be with me? What did I do wrong? So Kodesh Baruch Hu says, don't worry, I'm going to place you in a different tzaddik. You used to be in Sarah's name, now you're going to be in Hoshea's name. But it complained. Lechoira, the Hey demonstrates humility when the Hey does not complain that I used to be number one and now I'm second.
Who actually complained? Was it the Yud that complained?
No one, the Yud complained. Yud complained that it was taken off the name of a tzaddikis.
But the Yud had no complaint afterwards when they realized, hey, look what my...
It can't have a name of it can't have a complaint afterwards. It's placed now at number one. It moved to the aisle seat. Used to be the last one, now it's the first.
And you got another mitzvah with the extra ink later on. It talks about the ink that was put on Moshe's face and made it shine. There was a little bit of ink that came from that Yud.
Not from that Yud. Some say, I think Rabbeinu Bechaye says, last week's Parsha we learned, the pasuk says, "Vaish Moshe anav meod mikol adam asher pnei ha'adama." Moshe was so humble, more so than anyone on the planet. The word anav is spelled ksiv chaser. It's missing a yud. Moshe was so humble that he didn't even want to write about himself. I'm so humble, so he took the yud off. So Kodesh Baruch Hu says, "Oh yeah, you're going to get the yud right back at you." And with that, he was rewarded. That yud was smeared. The ink was extra smeared on his face, and from that, he radiated.
Wouldn't you say that the hay with Abraham? So we said the hay did not complain, right? The hay went. Can't we say that the hay went to Abraham, so he got another upgrade, so to speak?
Is it an upgrade? Again, it's right stuck in the middle. It's the middle seat.
Abraham was,
You can look at it like that if you're looking at the level of people. Or you can look at a technical thing. It used to get the aisle seat, now it's stuck in the middle. Next time you fly, you tell me. Is it more important to sit next to chashuva people or the actual place? We have to fight the whole time.
In this simple way about we can understand this Indian, a letter, giving an opinion, or we really have to be a Kabbalist to really know what's behind these kind of statements.
When you will be a Kabbalist, let me know. If you have to be one. The Rambam says that one who takes these agados of Chazal literally is a fool. Sachal, a fool. That's the language of the Rambam. Many agree with him. The Maharsha, the beginning of Brachos, Daf Gimel, again in Bechoirois, same letters but switch them around. I think in Daf Nun Zayin, where there's wild agados over there, the Maharsha says, and this is his language, Hagam, although that we understand that there's all kinds of deep secrets within these agados, one must take them literally as well. That's the language of the Maharsha. So, you can be a Kabbalist, you can be a Maharsha, you can be a Rambam.
Well, they say the same thing when you talk about gematrias. In other words, a lot of people say, gematrias don't prove anything. But,
how do you know you have 613 mitzvahs in the Torah? How do you know that? Who told you? The Gemara decided, Makos Daf Chav Gimel, to learn that there are 613 mitzvahs from Gematria. Torah, Taf Vav Reishei is 611, and two more we heard from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's how we know there's 613 mitzvahs. All those who counted the mitzvahs, Sefer HaCharedim and the Yereim, the Chinuch, the Smag, the Rambam, all Moinei HaMitzvahs, they all stop at 613. They argue, what do you put within the 613? But it's all clear, that's 613. Why? How do we know this? From a Gematria. Also, Gematria has halachic implications. A person who says, I'm going to be a Nazir, but it didn't say for how long. How long is he a Nazir for?
30 days.
Why 30 days? Because the passage says, Yi, He, Ye, Yud, and Hey. Yud and Hey is 30. Oh, you see from here that if you don't specify a specific term, 30 days. And there are many, many more examples. If you decide today to take a text in the Torah or anywhere else and to find something and you're going to force it into the text and you're going to say, oh, you see, I found it. That doesn't necessarily carry so much weight. But when Chazal speak and tell us all kinds of things in Gematria, that carries a lot of weight. In fact, there's a pasuk. Ki lo davar reik hu mikem. The end of Dvarim. Ki lo davar reik hu mikem, says the Baruch She'amar, the Baal Torah Tmima. That has a numerical value of Gematriot. And if you think it's vain, reik hu mikem, it's distant from you. You're far away from it because Gematriot will have a lot of value when it comes from Kadmoinim. When it comes from early sources, from Chazal and Rishonim, Achroinim, a value of heavy weights, of course it has tremendous, tremendous value. Listen to an interesting shayla somebody asked me. He said, I'm struggling with a Tosfos in Maseches Yevamos. Just can't figure it out. So you know what I did? I called my travel agent and I booked a ticket to Eretz Yisrael. You know for how long? 5 hours. I'm going to land in Ben Gurion, pick up a Gemara, learn this Tosfos, and turn around and go back to the United States. And he asks me, will it work? Where's he coming from? Gemara. Avira de Eretz Yisrael machkim. The air in Eretz Yisrael makes one wiser. So he asks me, it's a temporary, short visit. You also get this bonus. Or maybe it's only for someone who comes and decides to dwell here and to do the mitzvahs Ishuv Eretz Yisrael. You come and you live here. So Kodesh Baruch Hu says, you know, I'm going to give you extra wisdom. But if you come for a short trip, for a week, 2 weeks, for 5 hours, who says it's going to work? Will it work or not? This parsha is all about Eretz Yisrael. Spies in Eretz Yisrael. We're going to try to praise Eretz Yisrael and show the milos, and there's many of them. What do you say, Rabbi? Say, will one become wiser from a very short visit in Eretz Yisrael?
The environment of the airport is not a place where a person could get
Why not? There's a shul in the airport. There's 2 shuls actually. Go into the shul and sit and learn. Wonderful environment. Why? He's traveling with a bunch of Hasidim surrounding him. He's going to walk into the shul, sit there with the Hasidim. Maybe he's going to buy tickets for all of them. Shouldn't be a problem.
it'll lead to a permanent stay here in Eretz Yisrael.
But that's not my question. My question is, he's going to leave 5 hours later. Will he become wiser from a short visit?
Maybe
What's the Avera?
It comes back to what's here to leave Eretz Yisrael. Once you're here, you're not supposed to leave it.
That's one who lives here. One who lives here is not allowed to leave. One who doesn't live here is allowed to come visit. But we'll touch on that a little later. But l'choira, he's not doing Avera. Let's say he's not allowed to leave Chutz La'aretz. He lives there for whatever reason, a medical reason, he's not allowed to leave. So he's coming here for 5 hours, no problem. So is it a mitzius? You come here, you become wiser. And how long will it last? As soon as you leave, the air leaves and the wisdom flies away? Or is it a bonus when you're fulfilling the mitzvah? That's the shayla. It's a mitzius or a bonus?
It'll definitely last after that.
How long?
As long as you can contain the wisdom.
How do we do that? Is there a certain button you press?
No, but it's a machina. It's machina the person, not the...
Makim the person maybe while he's here. Who says when he leaves?
No. The person, as long as the person exists, he's hold on to it.
So to get this unbelievable maila, all you need to do is come once in your lifetime when you're 3 years old, for 3 seconds, leave, and you get the wisdom.
The more you stay, the more you get.
It inflates and you become wiser and wiser.
Whatever you pick up from wisdom during that time, that's his name.
You take a container with you? How do you do that?
He becomes a container.
Do you have a source?
If we say,
Yeah,
if we
there's
say
a source.
if we say Eretz Yisrael makes the person wise,
Right.
how can we have a situation where the Gemara Bavli is considered much more authoritative than the Gemara Yerushalmi?
That's just a practical thing because it came later after the Yerushalmi. So the Chachamim in Bavel saw the Yerushalmi, and based on that they passed in. So they had the benefit, the advantage of seeing what was there before them. But we'll see soon that it's exactly the opposite. Those who are in Eretz Yisrael are wiser.
I have a hint that the Meraglim entered the Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah.
In theory, they should have, according to this, they should have become smarter, but they came back and didn't do the smart thing.
Who says they're not smart? They have a Yetzirah. And the greater the person, the greater is Yetzirah. Maybe that's why they stumbled, because they became so wise. Gemara in Sukkah Nun Beis Amud Aleph, Kol HaGodol Michaveiro, Yitzro Godol Himeno. The greater you are, the greater your Yetzirah, it grows with you.
When Caleb came in, he went to the Mount Mechpelah to ask for bracha from
Dive in there.
from his father, from the fathers. Surely he got chizuk from the fathers, from the adults to in those 5 hours, in that time that he was in Israel.
And how does that answer my question?
You said it does.
And if you don't go to Ma'aseh Machpelah and you open up the Gemara in Yevamos with the Tosfos in the airport, will you become wiser or not? Without going and getting any brachos from live or dead rabbis. Let's see a pasuk in our Pasha. Reb Shlomo Kluger, always very, very original. And he looked at the pasuk in our Pasha and he asked 2 questions. When the Meraglim come back, and the whole thing happens, the pasuk says, "Vayipol Moshe ve'Aaron al peneihem." Moshe and Aaron start crying and they fall down. Do nefilas apayim. Ve'Yoshua bin Nun ve'Kalev ben Yefune min hatarim es haaretz, from those who spied the land, kar'u bigdeihem. They tore their clothes. Asks Reb Shlomo Kluger, "What are you telling me that Yoshua and Kalev, they're from the spies? You've been talking about them for a whole parak. I know exactly who they are, and I know the Maisa. I know what happened. So why is it necessary to insert these words here? Min hatarim es haaretz. They tore their clothes. And wait a second. Why are they tearing their clothes? And Moshe Rabbeinu is davening. If it's time for nefilas apayim, like Moshe and Aaron, so everybody should do nefilas apayim now. And if it's time to do kriya, so everybody should be involved in kriya, Moshe and Aaron included. No, Moshe and Aaron are davening nefilas apayim, vayipol al peneihem. Yeshua and Caleb, no, let's rip some clothes. What's going on here? Says Reb Shlomo Kluger in Ksubis Ayin Hey Amud Aleph, and this answers what you said before about the Bavli and Yerushalmi. The Gemara says, one of the Babylonian Chachamim, when they come to Eretz Yisrael, they are actually equal to. Why? Because in Bavel they used to learn with a lot of depth. And that's all they didn't used to learn with such depth, because they had the benefit of Avira de Eretz Yisrael Machkim. The air makes you wiser. So when the Babylonian comes here, with his style of learning, tremendous in depth, with the air that makes him wiser, he's worth 2. So Yeshua and Caleb, who had the benefit of coming into Eretz Yisrael, they're worth 4 people. And therefore, When do you do Nefilas Apayim? When there's still hope. Davening. When do you do Kriya? The guy's a goner. There's no more hope. Yehoshua and Caleb knew that there is no more hope. And therefore they did Kriya. Moshe and Aaron didn't know, so they daven. How come Yehoshua and Moshe can know more than Moshe and Aaron? Yes! Yehoshua and Caleb visited Eretz Yisrael, they became wiser than Moshe and Aaron. They are equal 4 people. Moshe and Aaron are only 2. Moshe and Aaron don't know, so they will daven. They think, maybe we can change the decree. Yehoshua and Caleb know, it's set, finished. No way. It's not going to change, and therefore they do Kriya. You see from here, even though they came for a short visit, they still became wiser because Eretz Yisrael has an unbelievable maila. It's a mitzius. You come into the air of Eretz Yisrael, you will become wiser. Unbelievable raya. What's the reason the air here makes one wiser? And in fact, does that apply to Goy? Will a Goy who comes here, if you say it's a mitzius, so as soon as the Goy enters the land, he becomes wiser as well? There's a Shelach Shuvas Afarkasta de Anya, Reb Daniel Sparber, and he brings a raya from Achsam Sofer in Chulin Yud Gimel that wants to say yes. The Gemara says that Ovdei Avodah Zarah in Chutz La'aretz, Minhag Avosehem Beyadeyem. They don't know what they're doing. They're in autopilot mode. They just do what they do. In Chutz La'aretz, in Eretz Yisrael, they know what they're doing. Why? So he's medayik from the Achsam Sofer because in Eretz Yisrael, the air makes one wiser, and it's a mitzius. So even a goy benefits from that. Tremendous chiddush from Achsam Sofer. But what's the reason the air here makes one wiser? So the Maharsha says that this all started when Moshe Rabbeinu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded him, I want you to go on the mountain and look at Eretz Yisrael. And when he did, he influenced the land with wisdom. Based on that, Reb Shlomo Kluger's chiddush doesn't work, because that's only going to happen much later before the Meraglim, so the whole thing doesn't start. But the Seforno in Bereshis, Yud Aleph, Lamed Aleph, he says, Eretz Yisrael did not have the Mabul. It's a Gemara in Zvachim Kuf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. There's a Machloekes there. According to one opinion, there was no Mabul. The flood did not come to Eretz Yisrael. It didn't rain here. And when it did, all over the world, it destroyed the air all over. But since in Eretz Yisrael there was no Mabul, the air here remained pure, and therefore it gives wisdom to those who are here. And based on that, the Shlomo Kluger's chiddush definitely works. The poskim deal with mitzvahs yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Does it apply for a short visit? A person comes for exactly 5 minutes, for a week. Does he fulfill the mitzvah of yishuv Eretz Yisrael when he is in such a short time? So Chelkas Yaakov rejects the raya of the Maharit. The Maharit is from the Rishonim, and he wants to say that one does not get a part of the mitzvah of yishuv Eretz Yisrael, but he rejects it. And the Tashbetz in Siman Reish Memches also maintains that one who comes to visit here for a short time does fulfill the mitzvah, because the ikar mitzvah yishuv Eretz Yisrael is to fulfill the mitzvahs hatluyos ba'aretz. So when you come here and you have the chance to do that, Mimele you're mekayim the mitzvah yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Sha'os Shuvas Mishneh Halachos, he maintains as well that one fulfills the mitzvah in a short visit. And lichora, if you look at the language of the Rambam in Hilchos Melachim Perek Hey Halacha Yud Aleph, it indicates that as well, because the Rambam paskins anyone who walks 4 amos in Eretz Yisrael, zoiche lechayei ha'olam haba. The Rambam doesn't say if you come to live here. If you walked for it, you have already the mitzvah. If you have the mitzvah, lichora, you should get the bonus of becoming wiser. Chazal decreed a tuma to one who leaves Eretz Yisrael, and if one leaves for 3 minutes, he becomes tameh. We have a rule: midah toiva is greater by 500 times than midah spuranus, and if that's the case, if you become tameh from leaving for 3 minutes, you should become wiser from coming in for 3 minutes. It's no different than when you're coming into a tanner. It doesn't make a difference how long you're going to stay there. If you buy anything, if you touch anything, you come in, you come out, it's not going to be so pleasant. But if you come into a perfume store, doesn't make a difference if you buy something or not. That doesn't make a difference how long you're going to stay there. You're going to have some nice smell associated with you. It's a mitzius. If it's a mitzius, everybody benefits from that. But obviously, the more time you spend here, the wiser you will become. And if one comes to live here, mistama, you will become even wiser than that. So if one has...
one thing based on what the Rav said about Yishuv Yisrael, from the mitzvahs, people today, from Kutzlar, they buy land over here, and they pay people to make kind of mitzvah. They don't even step foot in this country. So So how are they kind of...
That depends on the time to the mitzvah. Is it because the Kodesh Baruch Hu wants everybody to be in his palace, and it's not going to help you that you're sending a Shelach, or that it's only for fulfilling the mitzvahs hatluyos ba'aretz? Even to those who hold that it is dependent on mitzvahs hatluyos ba'aretz, you still have a mitzvah to come here. And when you do, you're using you're fulfilling what the Pasuk says, v'yirashtem otah, you should come here and dwell in the land, and you'll be able to fulfill the reason. Mitzvah hatluyos ba'aretz, if we can understand reasons, because we're not darshaning ta'ama deka. We can't. So Kodesh Baruch Hu says, come, I'd like to live here. He wants you to come here without a shaliach. Bring the shaliach as well, as we will see now. In 2 seconds.
Another point is that the person behind the burial plot, is that called Yishuv, or it's only if you're alive? Like he bought the land and they bury him after...
Then he just gets the benefit of being buried in Eretz Yisrael. In Ksubis Kuf Yud Aleph we learn one who's buried here, it's as if he is buried under the Mizbeach, and it's a kaparas avoinus. So the Gemara says, oh, yeah, if that's the case, you don't have to live here. Let me live wherever I want in the world, and after my death, let me be brought here and be buried here. Says the Gemara, no. Eno doima koltato mechaim le koltato mavis. It's not the same if the land absorbs the neshama, the person after his death, or when he used to live here before. That's a greater matter. So we talk about the virtues, the segulos of Eretz Yisrael.
Live here, and you have to be in Chutz La'aretz, and then you have to wait.
That's a Gemara in Sukkah Nun Vav, I think. Wherever Kodesh Baruch Hu wants a person to finish his life, he will find that his legs lead him towards that place. Because in Parashat Vayetze we learn about a city called Luz. And the Gemara in Soita says that in this city, Malach HaMavis did not have permission to enter. People would live forever. If that's the case, why don't we see people around who are 3,000 and 4,000 years old? Because the Gemara says, when a Kodesh Baruch Hu wants you, he knows how to find you, and he will force you to get out of the city. And when it's time to go, the Malach HaMavis knows what to do. He just doesn't have permission to go into the city. He'll find the person in a different place. So with all the virtues and with all the segulos of Eretz Yisrael, why is it that in Brachos Daf Hei Amud Aleph, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, Eretz Yisrael is acquired through Yisurim. 3 gifts of Kodesh Baruch Hu gave to Klal Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, Torah, and Olam Haba, and they are all acquired through Yisurim. Why does it have to be that way? Why can't Kodesh Baruch Hu just allow people to live in this land without any Yisurim? The Michtav Eliyahu, fantastic insight. Says the Michtav Eliyahu, a person who comes from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, suddenly he starts flowing with Chidushei Torah, because we said, the air in Eretz Yisrael makes one wiser. So he looks at his friends in Chutz La'aretz and says, he's going to become haughty. He has so many chidushim coming out of him. So Kodesh Baruch Hu gives him some yisurim to balance things out, which is an unbelievable idea. The Ramban, this will blow you away. Ramban in Milchamos Rosh Hashanah Perek Gimel. The Sefer Yereim from the Rishonim in Mitzvah Lam, it says the same thing. Because the air in Eretz Yisrael makes one wiser, we paskin like the Amoraim of Eretz Yisrael over the Amoraim in Bavel. Not to be believed. Why? Because they are here and they benefit from the air that makes one wiser. I want to share with you some Shalos Yitchuvis that was Zoiche to ask Maran Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal, and very, very surprising answers to them, some of them. This all appears in the Sefer Siach Min HaShamayim, in a chapter called Siach Eretz HaKodesh. Mitzvah Hashem, it ran at the first Ma'adura. It's not available, but it's coming out in Mitzvah Hashem, I hope next week. And a few weeks later, in Mitzvah Hashem, the English version called Guidance from Above. So, I'm sorry?
What was it?
Guidance from Above. Siach Min HaShamayim in Hebrew. I asked Rabbi Chaim the following shayla. There's a Ben Chutz La'aretz, guy from Chutz La'aretz who comes to Eretz Yisrael and he stays here for Sukkot, for Pesach, and he loves it. Second day, Yontef for him, which for us is just Isuch Chag. He looks around and he says, what am I, nuts? I'm not going back. I'm staying. Does his halachic status change in the middle of the day? The nafka bina is, last night he did Kiddush for second day Yontef. We did Havdalah. 2 hours ago, he finished davening Shachris and Musaf of Yontif. We daven Shachris of Yom Chol. Does he have to do now Havdalah in the middle of the day, like a Ben Eretz Yisrael, and daven mincha of Yom Chol? Rabbi Chaim writes to me in a letter, Ken, kach hora hachazon ish dasal. Yes, this is what the Chazon Ish instructed. Your halachic status changes in the middle of the day. Great. Ad kan hakofe aleph. A few months later, I go in and I say, Rebbe, this is what you told me last time. Now I want to ask you the reverse. A Ben Eretz Yisrael travels to the States. He is there on second day Yontif, after putting on tefillin betzina in his house, after davening weekday davening, after doing Havdalah last night, but it's their second day of Yontif, and somebody comes over and he says to him, listen, if you stay, $100,000 a day, make you an offer you can't refuse. And he says, I'm staying. Does his halachic status change also in the middle of the day or something unique to Eretz Yisrael? Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, Gadol Hador, looks at me and he says, Ken, aval hu meshuga. He says to me, yes, but he's crazy. So I laughed, like you guys did. Everybody else in the room laughed. But I continued, Rebbe, lemaise, aloch lemaise. Last night, he did Havdalah. Do you want him now to do Kiddush? A few hours ago, he davened Shachris of weekdays with tefillin. Do you want him now daven Mincha of Yontef? Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, Gadol Hador, looks at me and he says, Amarti lecha, hu meshuga, hu potor mikol ha-mitzvahs. I told you, he's a fool. He's exempt from all the mitzvahs. That was his answer.
No,
That was his answer.
it's serious.
He answered Ken. Halachic status changes even for Ben Eretz Yisrael. But what's wrong with your prioritization? For $5 more you want to stay there? Ken, hu meshuga, potor mikol ha-mitzvahs. The Gemara says in Psochim Daf Ches Amud Aleph, Shluchei mitzvah einan nizoikim. A person who's on his way to do a mitzvah, not going to be damaged. The Gemara in Ksubis Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph says that every 4 amos in Eretz Yisrael is a mitzvah. Based on that, I asked Reb Chaim, can we say that since no matter what you're doing in Eretz Yisrael, you're involved in a mitzvah, you're always protected? You're always shielded in Eretz Yisrael because I don't care what you're doing. You're going to work, you're going to buy something in the store. It doesn't make a difference. You're going to the beach. Every 4 amos is a mitzvah, so you're always a shliach mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael. Shliach mitzvah, shluchei mitzvah einan nizoikim. So Reb Chaim says to me, yes, if it's Shem Torah mitzvahs, it's true. Pilei ploy. Based on that, I told him, Rebbe, so now I think I understand the Gemara. The following page, Psochim Ches Amud Beis, the Gemara says, Rav was asked, Yeshiva guys, coming back from yeshiva in the evening, it's dangerous, mazikim, all kind of damaging agents that are there at night, are they protected or not? We know shluchei mitzvah einan nizoikim on the way to do a mitzvah. In the morning when they go to the yeshiva, they're protected. But what about on the way back? And Rav says, Lo yadana, I don't know. The Gemara continues and says, Rabbi Eliezer said, Shluchei mitzvah einan nizoikim, lo behalichasan velo b'chazarasan. Rabbi Eliezer decided he does know. Rav says, I don't know. But Rabbi Eliezer says, yes, Shluchei mitzvah will not be harmed, not on the way to the mitzvah, not on the way back from the mitzvah. Why does it say that Rav says, no, I don't know, and Rabbi Eliezer says, yes? He said, it's very pashut. Rav lived in Bavel. So Rav says, I don't know why you're going back home after the whole day, long day in yeshiva. If you're going home because you're hungry and you just want to eat a nice dinner, you're tired, you want to go to sleep, you're not involved in the mitzvah, why should you be protected? But if you're going home to eat in order to have koyach to learn tomorrow better, if you're going home to sleep, so tomorrow you have more koyach to learn, that's a mitzvah. But I don't know why you're coming back, so I just don't know. Can't answer your question. But Rabbi Eliezer says, yes, no matter what, doesn't make a difference why you're going home, because every 4 amos is a mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Eliezer lives in Eretz Yisrael, so therefore he says, shluchei mitzvah einan nizokin lo behalichasan velo b'chazarasan. Doesn't make a difference what direction you're going, you will be protected. And Rabbi Chaim says to me, Yafeh. I was there once when a guy comes, we'll call him Reuven, big Talmid Chochem, and he says to Rabbi Chaim that he was offered to become a Rosh Kollel in Italy. Should he go? He wants to be a Rosh Kollel there. Is it right? Maybe he should stay here and learn. And Rabbi Chaim says the language is Lo latzet lechutz laaretz. Don't leave the chutz laaretz. I published this Shaila and Shuva in one of my Sfarim, and Moiriv Rabbi Rab Nebenzal Shlita wrote me a letter. He says, I have a comment, Tzarich Yun, on Reb Chaim's answer. we know that one of the three reasons one is allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael is to learn Torah. How much more so to teach Torah? I think, though, we can understand Rabbi Chaim's answer. 2 points here. First of all, we're talking about a person who wants to go, and he thinks he's going to succeed there. He's asking, I was offered, should I accept it or not? Maybe he wants to stay here as well. And more, when the Gemara says there's a heter, to leave Eretz Yisrael, it's not a chiyuv, not an obligation. If you can sit here, and perhaps teach here, or just study here, you don't have to go. So Rabbi Chaim says, you're asking me what you to do? Stay here. I was sent on a mission. Hasidic Rebbe to about 80 families in New York wanted me to ask Rabbi Chaim. He really desires to move to Eretz Yisrael. Chashka nafsho, to come to Eretz Yisrael. But he has 80 families that he is like their shepherd. He's a Rebbe. Can he leave his flock? Is he allowed to? How do we look at it? So Rabbi Chaim says to me, Kulam ya'alu, shegam ha'chasidim shelo ya'alu. Everybody should come to Eretz Yisrael. His chasidim as well. I said, Rebbe, the chasidim are not asking and they're not coming. Only the Rebbe wants to know, can he leave? He says, Ya'ale, Ya'ale. Listen to this shayla. A guy who's in Kiruv, small town USA. He's the only shul, he's the only school in that place. And he feels the urge, he wants to come to Eretz Yisrael, and he asks, am I allowed to leave? If I leave, Yiddishkeit collapses in that town. I'm the only school, I'm the only shul. Am I allowed to leave? Can I leave? Should I leave? How do we view this? Rabbi Chaim writes me back in a letter, mitzvah sheyareh. A mitzvah for him to come. So the way it usually worked, Rabbi Chaim very short answers, and then I would write to him back, Rebbe, is this the reason you're saying what you're saying? So I wrote him back. Rabbi Chaim holds, like his uncle the Chazon Ish, like the Vilna Gaon, like the Ramban, that school of thought maintains that mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisrael is a mitzvah esse d'oraisa that applies b'zman hazeh. Mimele, all the different calculations fall by the wayside. Mitzvah d'oraisa that applies b'zman hazeh, and it's an obligation on you. So can you say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so sorry, next Shabbos I won't be able to keep, I'm involved in Kiruv. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to laugh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, tomorrow, I'm not planning on putting on tefillin, I'm involved in Kiruv. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, what? What are you talking about? First fulfill all the obligations that are set on your shoulders, and then find new mitzvahs. Kiruv is a great mitzvah, but it's not one of the Tariag mitzvahs. There is no mitzvah, thou shalt find a small town USA and become the only school, the only shul there. Once you fulfill all the obligations that you need to do, then go and find different mitzvahs. Kiruv is a tremendous suffix. It's very, very difficult. It's a suffix. But as soon as you land in Ben Gurion, it's a vadai. You're starting to fulfill the mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. We have a rule. When you have a suffix and you have a vadai, catch the vadai. A Talmid Chochem asked Reb Chaim, my Talmid who lives in Chutz La'aretz asked me to come for his son's bris. He wants me to be the sandak. Tremendous mitzvah. Should I go? Reb Chaim said to him, Lo kedai. I asked Reb Chaim, somebody wanted to go to his brother's wedding in Chutz La'aretz. Should he go? Reb Chaim says to me, Lo kedai. It's unbelievable. I came in with a bachur from the States who was learning here in yeshiva. And he was learning here for 2 years, very successful in yeshiva here, but his parents are putting a lot of pressure that he should come back, get a profession, and start his life. And this bachur wanted to sit and learn, at least until Pesach. So I asked Reb Chaim, what should we do? And Reb Chaim says to me, En motziin ma'aretz lechutz la'aretz. Don't go out from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz. The bachur was very worried. What will his parents say? His parents were not from the type that they go and consult rabbis or really care too much about rabbis' opinions. So Reb Chaim said this, and Reb Chaim gave a bracha. Meanwhile, the bachur didn't call his parents for 2 days because he was just too nervous. He was afraid and didn't know how to say it, how to break it to them. He consulted with his rabbis in the yeshiva, and after 2 days he decided, I got to pick up the phone and call my parents. He picked up the phone, and his father told him, you know, I got to tell you, I just came back, I just spoke to a certain rabbi, and he said to me that he thinks that you should stay in Eretz Yisrael until Pesach. The bracha of Reb Chaim. There was a girl in Shidduchim, lives in Eretz Yisrael. went out with a lot of boys, didn't find. Then suddenly she dated this doctor in the States, a Talmid Chochem, and she wants to get married to him, but he says, I want you to come here. This, my practice is here in the States, I want you to come here. I asked Rabbi Chaim, what should she do? So Rabbi Chaim says to me, tell the doctor to come here. I said, Rebbe, he already has patients there, he has the practice. Let him and let all the patients come to Eretz Yisrael. I said, Rebbe, the patients are not coming. He said, so the doctor should come along. That was his answer. There's a very well-to-do individual in the States who has a son in Yerushalayim who has a koilel, 50 guys sitting and learning. This guy in the States is basically the only sponsor of this koilel. He's a doctor, does very well. And now suddenly, I don't know how old he was, 65, 70, he has this urge to come to Eretz Yisrael. And he asks, if I come, I'm not going to have the same type of money that I have in Chutz La'aretz. Mitzvahs Talmud Torah de Rabim. Do you have anything that comes closer to the biggest mitzvah? Am I allowed to come? Should I come? Can I come? How do we view it? If I come, I don't have the money, the kollel will shut down. 50 guys sitting and learning. Reb Chaim writes me a letter. Mitzvah sheyale. Talmud Torah de Rabim. I'm in shock for about 3.5 seconds, and I start writing. Rebbe, is this the reason you're writing what you're writing? Contrary to popular belief, we don't have a mitzvah called, thou shalt work to make a lot of money to be able to sponsor a kollel with 50 guys sitting in Yerushalayim. Doesn't apply. This doesn't exist in one of the Taryag mitzvahs in the Torah. There is a mitzvah that if you have money, give from that to tzedakah, good causes. One of them is a kollel, is a wonderful endeavor, but there is no mitzvah per se to work for that. Everything that the doctor is saying is one big suffix. There's only one vada here. As soon as you land in Ben Gurion, you're starting to fulfill the mitzvah, Yishuv Eretz, that's a vada, no question. Stay in Chutz La'aretz. And who told you exactly what happened in Rosh Hashanah? When everything was decreed, Beit Daf Tes Zayin, Kol mezonoisav shel adam k'tzuvim lo miRosh Hashanah, everything is decreed in Rosh Hashanah, your income. Do you know exactly what was decreed? And even though in the last 25, 35, 40 years you've been earning whatever it is that you're earning, do you know what's going to happen this year? Stock market crash, medical, who knows what? Who says? Do you have a guarantee that you'll stay in Chutz La'aretz and you get that money? More than that. Let's say you're right. Stay in Chutz La'aretz and make a lot of money. Guess what? If HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't like your kollel, he will shut it down. And guess what? If you come to Eretz Yisrael and you don't have any money, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu likes that kollel, he's going to find different sponsors. And who says you're going to come to Eretz Yisrael and you're not going to win the lottery? You don't know Cheshbonos Shamayim. So all you have is suffix, a lot of sveikis. And all you have is one vada on the other side, that's called mitzvahs, Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. And since it's a mitzvahs Esed D'Oraisa, that applies B'zman Hazeh according to Reb Chaim, Mimele, all the calculations fall by the wayside, and therefore Reb Chaim said he should come. I asked him, is this the reason you're saying what you're saying? He says to me, Richtig, you're right, Nachon. Halacha is that you have to come to Eretz Yisrael. Those were his words. There are many opinions. First of all, you have the Satmar. Totally at the other end of the spectrum. Some say it's only a mitzvah d'Rabbanan now. Some say there is a mitzvah d'Oraisa, but it doesn't apply b'zman hazeh. Many opinions. Reb Moshe, famous shita, it's a mitzvah kiyumis and not a mitzvah chiyuvis. Tomorrow morning, Shabbos, Sunday morning, you have to come to the shul and put on tefillin, whether you like it or not. That's called the mitzvah chiyuvis. You're obligated. But there's a mitzvah called tzedakah. Why are we sitting here? Why are we not running outside looking for poor people to fulfill this mitzvah? Because it's a mitzvah kiyumis. When you mekayim it, so Kodesh Baruch Hu puts a check mark and sends you a check in the mail. But you're not chayav to do it all the time. And Moshe says, Yishuv Eretz Yisrael is a mitzvah kiyumis. If you fulfill it, you get a mitzvah. But it's not something that you're obligated to do at all times. There was a...
Spiritual protection rather than physical protection, because we can all think of many incidents of things that happen to people that shot by mitzvah, say terrorism and all sorts of things.
The Gemara already says in Psochim that shluchei mitzvah einan nizoikim, except in a place where shchicha hezeka. You cannot stand in the middle of the highway and say, nothing's going to happen to me. I'm on my way to do a mitzvah. Guess what's going to happen next? A big truck or a bus comes and So in a place which is dangerous, one cannot say this. Also, there could be other ways, other reasons. HaKadosh Baruch Hu ultimately has a big cheshbon, and everybody ultimately leaves this place. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu can actually turn things around that a person will die on the way to do a mitzvah. And that is the most wonderful thing. It's not a bad thing, it's a great thing. Because in Medrash Rabbah and Kohelet it says that if a person dies on the way to do a mitzvah, it is counted as if he fulfilled all 612 mitzvahs and only one was missing, and now he goes complete. Now he goes with all mitzvahs. The Medrash continues and says the reverse. If a person dies on the way to do an Aveira, it is counted that he also goes complete, as if he did all the Aveiras and only one was missing, and now he fulfilled that as well. There's a guy, we'll call him Reuven, who went to one of the Gedolei Hador, who passed away not too long ago, and that Gadol sent him to Chutz La'aretz to be a Rav of a Kehila there, to be a Rosh Koilel, to be a Menayel of a Talmud Torah, and he's doing great. But after a few years, he wants to come back to Eretz Yisrael. He wants to raise his children here. He wasn't able to go back to that Gadol who sent him to Chutz La'aretz, because that Gadol at that point was already in bad shape. He wasn't able to answer any questions, so therefore he asked me to go to Rabbi Chaim and ask him, is he allowed to come back? And if he is allowed to come back, does he have to look for somebody to switch him in his positions? And Rabbi Chaim says to me, Avada, he can come back. He should come back, and he does not need to look for somebody to switch him, because it's a mitzvah's esed deoraisa that applies b'zman hazeh. You can be a tzaddik and a chassid and look for somebody else, but that was Reb Chaim's answer. A Rav of a Kehila in Chutz La'aretz wanted me to ask Reb Chaim. He has older parents who live right next to him, and they say, we don't want you to leave, but he wants to go to Eretz Yisrael. The Kehila says, we don't want you to leave, but he wants to leave to Eretz Yisrael. Does he have to listen to his older parents, and does he have to listen to his Kehila members, or no? And Reb Chaim says, you already should know by now, mitzvah sheyale, mitzvah's esed deoraisa applies b'zman hazeh. Listen to this shayla. There's a woman who picks up the mail, and she opens something, looks strange, she's not familiar with the sender, and she noticed that her husband participated in some kind of a lottery, and he won 2 tickets to fly to Chutz La'aretz for a trip for a week and a half. Since she heard that Reb Chaim holds that one can't even go for a short trip, if it's not for medical purpose or for one of the 3 reasons, so she wanted to know, if my husband is not aware of this, can I tear these tickets? If they're not transferable and I can't get their money's worth, am I allowed to tear up these tickets? Reb Chaim says to me, yes. I once asked Reb Chaim, since we said every 4 Amos is a mitzvah, what about when I'm just driving in my car with the AC on and the radio and music blasting, and I'm just going from Haifa to Beersheba, just because I feel like it? When you're driving in a car, you also get every 4 Amos in a mitzvah. It's only for one who walks the land. Reb Chaim, in his very lengthy style, writes to me 3 words. Kiddushin Lamed Gimel. Roichev kemehalech dami. The Gemara says one who rides a donkey is just like walking. So you found a donkey with AC, with the radio. It's called a car. It's no different. So as long as you're in Eretz Yisrael moving for Amos, you make the mitzvah. So I told him, Rebbe, I want to take it a step forward. What about jumping into the pool that I don't have in my backyard and just doing laps back and forth, every 4 Amos is also a mitzvah? And then Chaim says to me, yes. You understand where you're living? Moedik! Every 4 Amos is a mitzvah.
If I've kind of been asked by a non-religious person to be made clear to Israel, would you tell them to stay in Israel? Tell them you're not going to...
If a Chaim would be asked by a non-religious person, should I put tefillin tomorrow morning, would he say to him, no? Of course! If the mitzvah to catch, the mitzvah Hashem will come and Eretz Yisrael will influence you, Why deny him from doing a mitzvah? The mitzvah that Chazal use a language that it corresponds, has a weight corresponding to all the mitzvahs. True, obviously. When a person is going to go down in Ruchnius and lose everything he has, he should not come. That's dependent. If above 10 tfachim, you're in a different reshus, lichora no. Only under, if a plane will be able to fly under 10 tfachim, lichora yeah.
There are gedolim that say do not come to Eretz Yisrael.
True, but now we're quoting Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky's answers. In the month of Tammuz Tafshin Dalet, so that's almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago, Yemach Shemam, the Hamas started shooting all kinds of rockets. The first day, sirens going off all over, and people got really scared and worried. So some people sent me to ask Rabbi Chaim. Some people here from Bet Shemesh, they wanted to know, should we fly to the States ad yavor zam, until this passes? Should we go to Chutz La'aretz? So first they wanted me to ask some Gedolim, so I went to Reb Steinman. And Reb Steinman Zatzal says to me, and what's going to happen if all the Jews run away? He smiled and he says, don't worry, everything will be okay. He gave a bracha, and Baruch Hashem, things worked out. I went to Reb Chaim, and Reb Chaim says to me, tell him, everybody who's worried, to come to Bnei Brak. I said, Rebbe, they're not coming to Bnei Brak. They want to either stay in Bet Shemesh or fly to the States. He said to me, anyone who's worried should come here to Bnei Brak, everything will be okay. I went with a fellow who had the zchus to make Aliyah and come here to Eretz Yisrael. He left Lakewood. And when he left, some of his chaverim were telling him, what are you doing? You shouldn't do this now. Let's wait. Mashiach is coming soon, and after he comes, then we'll all come together. You shouldn't do this now. So this guy was a little worried. Some of the guys were Talmidei Chachamim. So he wanted me to ask Reb Chaim. We went together, and I asked Reb Chaim, Rebbe, is it true what they're saying? And Reb Chaim says, Chas v'sholom. Chalila. It's a mitzvah to make Aliyah. So I said to him, is it because it's a mitzvah esed deoraisa that applies b'zman hazeh? And Reb Chaim said yes. No. Some say only Arba Amos Chadashos, new for Amos. There is no source to that. Every single time a person goes from his house to the shul, from the shul back to the house, every 4 Amos is a mitzvah. Chazal in the Gemara, the Rambam which recorded before in Hilchos Melachim, nobody ever decided to say the word Chadashos. And if it has to be Chadashos to attain this, to gain this mitzvah, I constantly have to be outside the best medrash. There's no need to that. As soon as you're walking 4 Amos in Eretz Yisrael, you are Mekayim the mitzvah and you get the reward. There's a Gemara that appears twice in Shas. In Tanis Daf Zayin Amud Aleph and Makos Daf Yud Amud Aleph, Chazal darshan a pasuk from Yirmiyah, Cherev el habadim v'no'alu. And the Gemara says, woe to Talmidei Chachamim who learn by themselves, they will forget their Torah. They will become foolish and they will forget their Torah. So I asked Reb Chaim, you know of many Gedolei Olam, the Gaon Mivilna, the Chazon Ish, Rebbe Yoshev, and many others, that learned on their own, no chavrusa. They studied on their own for many, many years. How were they not choishesh to this Gemara? If you learn by yourself, it's dangerous. So Reb Chaim says to me, well, it's different. Ksheyesh velo kshe'en. If you have a chavrusa, which is good for you, and you can learn, don't learn on your own. But if you don't have somebody at your level, somebody's going to benefit you, so then obviously you can learn by yourself. Maiseish, which is 7 chalakim, amazing stuff on the Chazon Ish. So it says over there that somebody once came to the Chazon Ish and he told him that he learns by himself. Since Chazal say if you learn by yourself you can forget all your Torah and become foolish, is it not a good practice and he should go to yeshiva and find a chavrusa? And the Chazon Ish told him that what Chazal said was back in their days, when the material wasn't printed, and then there was a chashash that if you're learning by yourself, you're going to continue saying the wrong things and nobody's going to correct you. So you need chaverim, you need to learn by chavrusa, you need to learn with others that you're not going to say something wrong. But today, when everything is printed, everything is found, there's no problem. And the Chazon Ish added and said, Rabbi Akiva Eiger is also a good chavrusa to have. You're learning today with Rabbi Akiva Eiger, it's not about chavrusa. But there's a tremendous chiddush to Gedolei Olam. The Yavitz in his Akdama to his Siddur Daf Lamed Gimel, and the Artzos HaChaim, Reb Chaim Palagi, they both arrive at the same conclusion, Midata de Nafshe, and they both say, what Chazal here say, that if you learn on your own, you're going to forget Torah, is only in Chutz La'aretz. In Eretz Yisrael, you can learn on your own. Because in Eretz Yisrael, you have the benefit of the air, and Eretz Yisrael makes you wiser, so that balances things out, and immediately this doesn't apply, a tremendous chiddush. So I asked Reb Chaim, can one rely on this chiddush? And Reb Chaim says to me, if you're Talmid Chochem, you can rely on it. And he says to me, B'dok v'tireh, test it and see. Test it. Try, see if you lose your Torah, you become foolish or not.
Learns with a shiur or this is considered chavruta or not?
I don't think so. Can he ask the cassette all kinds of questions?
No, but he has to.
Can the cassette correct him when he says things wrong? He's learning. Baruch Hashem is learning. Does he have the benefits of a chavrusa? I don't think so. Now let's move a little to tzitzis, the end of the parasha. A riddle. Normally, before you put on tzitzis, you have to check your tzitzis, right? When is it that you have to check your tzitzis? At night. Twice a year, at least. You have to check it at night. When does that happen? Hoshana Rabbi, you should check your tzitzis. Why? Rosh Hashanah. At what point? Why? It's before nighttime. But you check it before you put it on. You put it on before Maghrib. A great Chiddush of Chaim Palaji.
Those who sleep at the Tani Katan.
They don't have to check it. Doesn't say anywhere that they have to check it. Mistama, they're keeping the same talis katan that they had the whole day. So why should they need to check it now? Moed lechol chai. Rabbi Chaim Palaji says that the first day of Chanukah before you light, and he's a Sephardi, so it's not like Ashkenazim that would light a shkia. He's like mamish after taste. Check your tzitzis to fulfill the pasuk ve'achuta meshulash lo b'meheira yinatek. You have the three prong. On one hand, you have the mezuzah on the right hand. You have the Chanukiyah, the menorah that you're going to light Chanukah candles on the left, and you have the tzitzis, the person himself in the middle. Achuta mishulash lo b'meheira yinatek. And just like he says that you do in Kiddush Levana. In Kiddush Levana also there's an inyan to check your tzitzis, so that applies more than twice a year, every single month in Kiddush Levana. And the first night of Chanukah at least. So Lichoira, from his language, you can check it every single night. It's a good idea, Chanukah, but at least the first night, that's what he says. And who is the first person to ever wear tzitzis? The first person in history to wear tzitzis. First man ever to wear tzitzis. I gave already the answer. The first man, Adam Harishon. In the Zohar HaKodesh in Bereshis Daf Kaf Ches Amud Beis, and the pasuk Vayitperu Alei Te'ena, the Zohar says HaKodesh Baruch Hu prepared tzitzis. Adam Harishon is the first one. And
Where was that?
Zohar HaKodesh in Bereshis Daf Kaf Ches Koach. Koach. Kaf Ches 28. Page Kaf Ches in the Zohar HaKodesh in Bereshis.
I'm going to go over that one, kids.
Good. I asked Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky another shaila about tzitzis. In Chutz La'aretz, somewhere in the States, the girls in the school were doing some kind of a play, and the teacher gave each one their job, their tafkid, what they need to do, and she gave a 9-year-old their tafkid, and she has to wear tzitzis. Should she wear tzitzis? And Chaim's answer is, Chalila! Not just no, Chalila! That's v'sholem. What's the connection between tzitzis and meat? A halachic question, something similar. Tzitzis and meat. One halacha that applies to both. Can it be? Surprising answer. Yoredea Kuf Yud Ches Amud Aleph, we learned that if you send meat, you have to wrap it twice. Right? Because we don't want anyone to come and switch it with non-kosher meat. The surprising thing is that in Orach Chaim Simen Chaf, Seif Hek, in the Mishnah Berurah, he says the same thing. If you're sending a tzitzis with a goy, you have to wrap it twice. So it's the same halacha that meat and tzitzis share, and that is a chiddush.
What's the reason?
No, not bizarre. We just don't know what the goy is going to do with your tzitzis. Who knows what he's going to do? Just to make sure that the person who receives the right item that you sent. Chaf, Seif Cotton Hay in the Mishnah Berurah. We say every single day in Parashat Tzitzis, "V'lo zasuru acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem." So a friend of mine showed me a letter that he asked Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky years ago. He writes to him, Rebbe, I want to know, maybe you can give me some kind of a chizuk for shmiras ha'einayim. We're starting now the summer, very important topic to discuss. What can you give me? Something chizuk. So Reb Chaim writes him back a very short answer. Ayin Mishlei Chaf Daled Tet Zayin. That was his answer. What does the pasuk there say? Ki sheva yipol tzadik vakam ureshaim yikashlu vera. What's interesting, Reb Chaim didn't say re'eh. He said ayin, which means delve into this and look at this pasuk again and again to get the chizuk that you need. Sheva yipol tzaddik, but the tzaddik, even though he stumbles, he rises vakam. What's interesting about the stamped envelope that my friend sent to Rabbi Chaim, so he'd be able to send him back the answer. He wrote, Harav HaGaon Chaim Kanievsky. Rabbi Chaim took the time and marked twice the Gaon. He erased, he put 2 lines on the word Gaon. He took the time. Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, he didn't have time. He erased the word HaGaon, wrote 2 lines on it. This is years ago. Shalat Teshuvas Mishnah Halachos Chelek Yud Beis Simen Shin Mem Beis tells us a story. He says that the grandson of Reb Elul Lapian told him the following story. A Bachur in the yeshiva came to Reb Elul Lapian and said to him, Rebbe, I wanted to ask you, there's a wedding of a friend in Tel Aviv. I wanted to know if I can go to that wedding. There's not going to be a mechitza there. Can I go? So Reb Elul says to him, what about hirhurim? What about improper thoughts? So the Bachur says to him, I'm not worried about that. I'm not going to have hirhurim. Reb Elul Lapian called his grandson and said, what's this guy's mother's name? He says, what are you asking about his mother? He says, because obviously he's sick. He says, why is he sick? So Reb Elul says, listen, I'm 80 years old. I'm half blind. I don't see in one eye. And whenever I want to go out of the house, not to Tel Aviv, I'm just going out of the house, I tremble. Maybe I'm going to see something that I'm not supposed to see. And this is a 20-year-old who is not worried to go to a wedding in Tel Aviv without a mechitza. He's not going to have yihurim. Obviously, he's sick. We have to daven for his refuah shleima. The same Reb Elul Lapian, the Zatzal, was standing once in a bus stop with a Talmid waiting for a bus. A bunch of other people are standing there, and a woman comes over. And she says to him, Slicha, slicha, ma'asha, excuse me, what time is it? Reb Elul Lapian looks at his watch, it's 2:15. Oh, thank you very much, and she steps aside. 2 minutes later, lady comes back. Slicha, slicha, ma'asha, excuse me, what time is it? Reb Elul looks at his watch, it's 2:17. Well, thank you very much. She moves aside. 2 minutes later, she comes back. Excuse me, what time is it? 2:19. Thank you very much. The Talmid starts to get upset. Rebbe, every single time she comes back, we're going to have to answer her? There's no end to it? And Reb Elul Lapian looks at his Talmid and he says to him, and who told you it's the same woman? Who told you it's the same woman? Good Shabbos, Rabbi Say.